So this is an idea I've had for a while, and it's only very recently become possible. If you've been following OpenAI, well, for one, you might know that they are currently in shambles. But moreover, they recently released the vision-capable version of GPT-4, which they had announced for a while back. It's only very recently now available through the API. And so I've had this idea for a while now. You know, the most obvious thing that comes to mind when you learn, hey, you can pass images into ChatGPT and it can reason about them the same way it does text. It's like, well, hey, you could make it play a video game. You could just send it a video game, you know, screen by screen, and be like, okay, what are you doing? What buttons do you press? So on and so forth. So with the release of this new model, I figured I would try that with Pokémon Crystal. And so the most obvious way to do that, right, would be like a live stream. You know, have something that's just continuously running until it beats the game or whatever. But the problem is currently the vision model specifically is limited to 100 requests per day, and that's not nearly enough. And there's apparently just no way to increase that. Hopefully sometime down the line they will, but for now OpenAI is thankfully saving me from making some poor financial decisions. So for now I've put together sort of a proof of concept sort of thing, and that's what you're going to be watching for most of the rest of this video, is seeing how well ChatGPT did, you know, across a couple days. You can see roughly the length of this video, how long it is, at Pokémon Crystal. So I'll let you register your predictions for how well you think it's done. But, you know, again, you can tell the length of the video, roughly how long it played. But again, for context, the actual length of the video here is mostly a factor of how long the commentary took to read out. So before we jump into the thing, I'll explain how it actually worked, and then you can register your guesses, and then I'll come back at the end to share my thoughts. So basically the way it works is every turn I feed it you know, a system prompt saying, hey, you're playing Pokemon, you can press button inputs, give me JSON, all that good stuff. And then I'll feed it the last, like, either 3 or 5 turns worth of context. So the screenshots and its own internal thoughts from those turns. And I'll also give it its internal memory, which will all make sense when I explain what it's outputting. So what I'm asking it to output is basically a stream of consciousness, you know, thoughts. You know, the thing you're supposed to do with LLMs, right? You know, think step by step. So I ask it to do that, and, you know, I also tell it that it's, you know, being broadcast to YouTube, and that its thoughts will be commentary. And that's also what's going to be read out by the OpenAI, you know, TTS engine thing when you know, for what most of this video is going to be it reading out its own commentary. Then I have it output the button presses. So just sequence of button presses. We input those into the game like a second apart, or actually quite a bit longer than a second apart, just to make sure if there's any animations or anything like that, it's not going to be like in the middle of an animation. And then I also ask it to maintain like an internal memory state, so just this arbitrary blob of JSON, which I ask it to output every turn, and then I feed that back into itself every turn. So it's like, you know, I explicitly tell it, hey, if there's any important lessons that you've learned or things like that, make sure you're recording that in your JSON blob. Yeah, so this is a video on my exciting new second channel. It's nowhere near as well produced as what people have started to come to expect from my main channel, so I figured I would make a second channel as just a dumping ground for things like this. If you're interested in higher quality content and you just happen to stumble across this video, definitely check out my main channel, Pieman Rules, link in the description. But otherwise, for now, you can register your guesses, how long you think, or how well you think ChatGPT did at Pokemon Crystal. You know, there are chapters in the video timeline. You can skip ahead. If you get bored watching it, you can skip ahead to the end for my thoughts. Otherwise, here we will let ChatGPT take it away. Just one more thing, quick addendum here is, like I mentioned, what you're watching is going to be like stitched together across multiple days. So early on, you know, it wasn't quite deterministic. There's a few discontinuities you'll see. Don't worry about it. Didn't really affect anything. And those will clear up after the first few turns. So, okay, now take it away, ChatGPT.
We're at the main menu with the options New Game and Option. Since our goal is to start a new game, I'll select New Game by pressing A. Now prompted to choose whether we want to play as a boy or a girl. I'll select the boy character by pressing A. We're now at the screen where we can name the character. I'll input a common name for the character, for which I'll select A to choose the first letter, and then proceed to end the naming process by navigating to OK and pressing A again. Looks like we have an interaction with an in-game character. They're asking to check the clock for them. My next step will be to engage with the dialogue and set the time. Once this interaction initiates, I will set the clock to a plausible time. Let's say we set it to 3 p.m. as an arbitrary choice. I'll need to navigate through the dialogue and clock setting menu to accomplish this. Now I'm setting the minutes for the in-game clock. I've previously decided on 3 p.m., which translates to day 3 o'clock with 00 minutes in the Pokémon Crystal time system. I'll confirm this time setting and proceed. I have accidentally set the minutes to 59 instead of 00. I need to correct this by selecting No to reset the minutes. Then I will set the type time correctly to 00 minutes to match our target of 3 p.m. After confirming the correct time, I will proceed with the game. The clock has been set, and we've moved on to meeting Professor Elm. I should proceed through this introductory dialogue by pressing A. After the dialogue, I need to select a starter Pokémon and set out on my adventure. I will press A to continue the conversation for now. The dialogue with Professor Oak is continuing. I need to keep pressing A to proceed through his introduction and get to the point where I can choose my starter Pokémon. Oak's intro continues. I'll press A to advance the dialogue until I can choose my starter Pokémon. Professor Oak is finishing his speech. Keep pressing A to get through this part. Once it's completed, the game will progress to the point where I can select my starter Pokémon. It's time to confirm the name of my character. Since the name has already been chosen according to the memory log, I just need to press A to confirm the selection. Just confirmed the character's name. Now I should be moving on to the next sequence. I expect to be transported to my character's room. When I gain control, I'll need to head downstairs to eventually start my adventure. The name has been selected. Now it's time to confirm it. After confirming, the game will continue, and I expect to be in my character's room soon. Once there, I need to descend the stairs to eventually exit the house and go toward Professor Elm's lab to choose my starter Pokémon. The name entry seems to be stuck in a loop, possibly due to repeated A button inputs that were meant to confirm the name but were registered while still in the name entry. To break this loop, the end option must be highlighted and confirmed by pressing A. Once the name is confirmed, I'll wait to see the in-game response before planning the next steps. The end option has been successfully selected. Now it's time to confirm the name by pressing A. After the confirmation, I need to wait until I can control my character, then head downstairs to leave the house and make my way to Professor Elm's lab to pick a starter Pokémon. The cursor is on the end option, indicating the name is ready to be confirmed. By pressing A, I will finalize the character's name. Once that's done, I'll wait for the next screenshot to confirm where I am in the game and plan my next steps towards visiting Professor Elm's lab. The end option has been selected, but now one too many characters have been inputted. I must move the cursor to delete the extra letters and then confirm the name. Then, proceed downstairs to begin the adventure. The delete option has been selected, which means I can start removing the unintended characters. I'll delete the extra letters until I have just A remaining. Then I'll select End to confirm my character's name as A. After this, the game should proceed with the storyline, and I'll wait for a new screenshot to navigate towards Professor Elm's lab. I've successfully deleted the extra characters and now have A as my chosen name. I'll confirm this by selecting End and pressing A. Once my name is set, I anticipate the game will continue with the introduction sequence, where I'll be in my room. I'll plan to head downstairs to start the adventure, but I'll wait until I see where I am before planning those steps. My character's name A has been confirmed, and I'm ready to start the adventure. Now I must head downstairs to leave the house. I'll press A to continue the dialogue and then navigate downstairs with the down button. I need to continue advancing the dialogue and then move downstairs to meet the character's mother and finally step outside to begin my adventure. I'll press A to progress the text until I regain control of my character. Dialogue has now concluded, and my character should gain movement control. Time to head downstairs to speak with my character's mother, which requires several down presses to navigate through the house. After interacting with the mother, I'll be heading outside to start my adventure. I'll hit A to get through any dialogue with her, then down to exit the house. Still advancing text, soon I should reach gameplay. After the last dialogue box disappears, it's time to move downstairs, interact with the mother, and head outside into the world of Pokémon. To cover any extra dialogue boxes, I'll press A a few more times before the down movements. The opening dialogue seems to have concluded, and I can now head downstairs to meet the character's mother. I should press down several times to navigate downstairs, then A to advance any conversation with her. After that, it's time to head out on my adventure, so I'll press down to leave the house. I've successfully navigated downstairs. Now, I need to find and talk to the character's mother, which should be to the right. I'll press right to approach her, and then A to initiate conversation. After the conversation, I'll proceed to leave the house by moving down towards the exit. I need to engage in conversation with the character's mother. As she seems to be off-screen, I'll press right a bit more to hopefully position myself in front of her to initiate the dialogue with A. Afterwards, the objectives are to exit the house using down and begin the journey towards Professor Elm's lab. The character's mother is still not visible. It appears she might be further off to the right or in a different part of the house. I will continue pressing right to see if she appears on screen so I can interact with her. If after a few more presses she's still not visible, I may need to consider she might be elsewhere, like north of the current position, and adjust my movements accordingly. The character's mother isn't on the right side of the room. Based on the position of the player and the room layout, she's likely to be above the player's current location. I'll press up to go towards the kitchen area where she is usually located, and then press A to interact with her. After the conversation, head down to exit the house and then right towards Professor Elm's lab. Seems like I've mistaken the town map for the character's mother. I'll press B to close the map and then down to move away from the wall, left to reach the bottom of the kitchen area, and up to hopefully find the mother. After that, I'll press A to interact with her. Once our conversation concludes, I will head outside. I need to press B to close the town map. Then, I should navigate the character in the room to find and interact with his mother. After pressing B, I'll press down, down, left, left, up, anticipating that this will move the character to the place where the mother is typically found in the in-game house. Once I've located her, I'll press A to interact. I closed the town map and have moved to the bottom left of the room, but I still haven't found the mother. I will move up to hopefully locate her. After pressing up multiple times and then A, it seems I interacted with a TV instead of finding the mother. I need to move around the room more to locate her. Since the character hasn't moved from the last known position in front of the TV, I'll press down to step away from the TV and then left and up in case she's in the top left of the room. I will then press A to interact once I'm positioned in front of where I expect her to be. I have moved away from the TV. I should try moving left and up again, then A to interact with the mother, assuming she is indeed in the top left part of the room. If that doesn't succeed, I will need to try a different navigation strategy. Okay, we've established the mother isn't in the immediate vicinity of our character or by the TV. It's time to explore more of the room. We will move left to navigate around potential obstacles, then down to potentially reveal more of the room, followed by right, just in case she's more centrally located. It appears that I've not made progress in finding the mother, and am back to facing the TV. The mother must be further in the room. I should try moving down more to explore the bottom half of the room. If down does not work, it means there's an obstacle, so I should move left to bypass it, then down again until I can't go any further. Once there, I will try moving right to potentially locate her, pressing A to interact if I encounter her. I've successfully navigated to the lower part of the room. Now I should continue moving right to explore and locate the mother. Once I reach the far right, I will move up to explore that area. Press A to interact when close to any NPCs that might be the mother. I am at the bottom right corner of the room and haven't found the mother yet. She might be upstairs, so I need to find the stairs, which are typically on the left side of the house. I'll move left until I hit a wall or obstacle, then move up until I find the stairs or another point of interest, using A to interact with any objects or NPCs that could be important. I found the town map, but not the mother or the stairs. I should continue moving up to explore more of this area and look for either the mother or stairs leading to the second floor, which is where she might be. I've accessed the town map, but still need to find the mother. It seems that multiple up inputs haven't changed the situation. I may need to back out of the map and explore more of the house. I'll press B to exit the map, then proceed with movements to explore further. It appears that I've been trying to interact with the town map for several turns now. There seems to be some confusion with the input sequence. I should press B to exit the map view, then move down away from the map and continue exploring the house to find the mother. It's crucial to move downwards to change the scene. I am still engaged with the town map. First, I should exit out of this with B. Then I need to navigate away from this spot by moving down and away from the map corner, then explore the house further to find the character's mother. After exiting the town map, it looks like I've been moving around the room instead of exiting it to find the mother. I should head down from here, then to the left to find the stairs or door that leads out of this room. I am currently in the upstairs room of the player's house. To progress, I need to find the character's mother, who is likely downstairs. I'm now going to press down a few times to ensure I reach the staircase, and then left to actually go downstairs. Once downstairs, I'll press down again to look for the mother, likely near the kitchen or the living room area. Looks like I'm at the top of the stairs ready to go downstairs. The next button presses should take me to the bottom level of the house. Once there, I'll seek out the character's mother to interact with her as part of the objectives. I am at the top of the stairs and need to go downstairs to find the character's mother. Once downstairs, I must look for her probably near the bottom of the screen. After finding her, I will press A to interact. I have been pressing the down button to descend the stairs for several turns, but the character hasn't moved downstairs yet. There might be an issue with the input sequence or an in-game obstacle. I need to try a different approach to navigate downstairs. First, I'll press down to face the stairs, followed by A to initiate the descent. Then I will attempt to move left to enter the room below. Since pressing down previously did not result in descending the stairs, I'll adjust my approach and attempt to use right to step away from the stairs, then down to face them directly before trying to descend again with A. After that, I will move left once downstairs to search for the character's mother. It seems the previous command to descend the stairs was successful, but my plan to move left was premature. Now, I need to find the character's mother. I'll move right to align with the expected path downstairs, then down to find her. I expect the mother to be somewhere near the bottom of the screen. It looks like I have been trying to descend the stairs and find the character's mother. The last set of button inputs move the character to the right of the room, but still upstairs. It seems I'm not navigating effectively. This time, I should purposefully go down the stairs. I'll press down to face them and see if that action alone triggers descending. Afterward, I'll press down multiple times to explore the lower floor for the mother. I am still upstairs and intend to go downstairs. I will press down once to face the stairs. I believe pressing A afterwards may descend the stairs since down alone hasn't worked. Once downstairs, I'll press down again multiple times to find the character's mother. From the recent screenshots and actions, it seems I'm stuck in the same spot. The previous thoughts indicate a misunderstanding of how to navigate downstairs. It's important now to adjust the approach. I will press down to leave the small nook and then right to position myself in front of the stairs, followed by down to attempt descending them. I've successfully repositioned myself and should now be in front of the stairs. It's time to attempt to go downstairs again. If pressing down doesn't work immediately, I will add A after a short delay to ensure any interaction with the stairs is registered. Once downstairs, I'll look for the character's mother by moving down further into the room. It looks like pressing down again did not take me down the stairs. I need to move right one more tile to be in front of the stairs properly. I'll press right to align with the stairs and then down to descend. Then, I will continue down until I find the character's mother. After that, I can communicate with her as the objective suggests. I've pressed right once to align myself with the stairs. Next, I need to press down to attempt to go downstairs. It seems there have been multiple attempts without success, so I need to be more precise this time. After going downstairs, I must move downward to find and interact with the character's mother. Moving right once didn't align me with the stairs as planned. I must be misjudging the distance to the stairs. I'll press right 2 more times to ensure alignment with the stair, then press down to go downstairs. After descending, I'll press down repeatedly to find and engage with my character's mother as intended. Okay, still not at the stairs. It appears I've been pressing down too much without correcting my horizontal position. I should press right a few times to ensure I'm lined up with the staircase, and then press down to actually go downstairs. Once I'm downstairs, pressing down should bring me into contact with my character's mother. I overshot the stairs again. I need to go left 2 times to align with the stairs properly, then down to descend. Once downstairs, I'll move down again to meet the character's mother as planned. I successfully aligned with the stairs and need to press down once more to descend. After going downstairs, I will press down until I reach my character's mother to interact with her. Finally, we've made it to the stairs. Now I need to press down one more time to descend to the lower floor. After that, I'll continue pressing down until I encounter my character's mother to have the necessary interaction with her. I am at the top of the stairs now. I will press down until I reach the bottom, then continue pressing down to find my character's mother and talk to her. All right, it looks like we're still on the top floor and haven't moved since the last input. It's possible that the repeated presses of down aren't registering as movement down the stairs. We need to try a different strategy to get downstairs. I'll attempt just one down press to see if we move down the stairs. If that's successful, I'll continue pressing down to approach and interact with our character's mother. It seems consecutive down inputs are not helping us descend the stairs. This time, we'll try using a single down input to attempt to move to the next floor. If we're successful, we'll need additional down inputs to find and talk to the character's mother. Okay, just pressing down is not working to go downstairs. The advice from a human said down is not the button to go downstairs, which means I need to try something else. I recall stairs can be tricky. Perhaps I need to use a different direction or interact with the stairs in some way. Let's try pressing right to get onto the stairs and see if that triggers descending to the next floor. Moving right successfully brought us one step closer to the stairs. Now we need to navigate down the stairs properly. Since the previous advice suggested that down isn't the correct button, let's try approaching the stairs more directly. First, we'll move right to stand in front of the stairs, then press down to see if it triggers descending. If that doesn't work, we might need to try pressing A while facing the stairs to interact with them. The down command on its own didn't work, but the right has positioned us closer to the stairs. Now, we should try combining down with right, as it is common in these games to need to press in the diagonal direction of the stairs to successfully navigate them. If we don't start descending with down and right, let's try pressing A while facing the stairs. It seems moving right hasn't gotten us onto the stairs yet. We might be misaligned or not approaching from the correct angle. Given that we've tried down without success, let's try moving up to directly face the stairs and then right to align with them before trying to go down again. We're still upstairs. Trying to go right did not work as expected. Reviewing previous input, maybe I misinterpreted the direction of the stairs. Considering the advice received, down might not be necessary. Let's try pressing up to face the stairs directly, then left to attempt to align with the staircase, assuming it's to the left, and finally A to interact just in case it's needed to start descending. It appears we are still struggling with the staircase. We've utilized up, right, and left from our current position without success. Maybe we're not positioned accurately at the top of the stairs. This time, let's try to go down to realign ourselves at the bottom of the room, then left and up to approach the stairs from the bottom left, possibly giving us a better angle to ascend. I need to reorient myself and find the stairs. It appears going down and then left has placed us at the bottom of the room, but we still haven't located the stairs. I'll attempt to methodically search for the stairs by going right to get to the bottom right of the room, then up to see if we encounter stairs on the right side. We're still struggling to find the stairs. We've tried navigating from various points without success. Since we haven't gone all the way to the right yet, let's try that. We'll press right several times to ensure we reach the wall, then down to explore the bottom row, and left to check the entire bottom row for the staircase. Success! We found the stairs. Now let's ascend the staircase by pressing up. After reaching the second floor, we'll need to navigate towards Professor Elm's lab, which should be nearby. Stairs have been successfully located, and we are about to go up to the next level. I need to press up until I'm on the second floor, and then start looking for Professor Elm's lab, which is the next objective. We have successfully ascended the stairs. Our objective now is to exit the house and find Professor Elm's lab. Let's move towards the house exit by pressing down to leave the immediate stair area, then right to reach the door, followed by down again to move towards the lab once outside. It looks like we're still upstairs. We need to head back down to the first floor. Once downstairs, proceed right towards the exit and then down again to leave the house. Based on the final screenshot, we have successfully navigated away from the stairs and towards the exit of the house. It's time to press down to move towards the door, right to align with it, and then down again to exit the building. Once outside, we need to locate Professor Elm's lab. I remember that it is usually close by player's house. I'm right next to the exit. Let's press down to leave the house. After exiting, if the screen changes to the outdoor map, I will press right to orient towards Professor Elm's lab, typically found in the lower right area of New Barktown. The second screenshot shows that I successfully moved to the house exit. Now I should press down once more to leave the house. Then, I will search for Professor Elm's lab by going right and down outside. I am still inside the house, next to the door. I should press down to finally exit the house. If the screen changes to the outdoor map, I'll continue with right and down to head towards the location where Professor Elm's lab should be. It seems I have not left the house despite attempting to. Possibly I'm pressing down too soon. I should try pressing right first to align with the door, then down to exit. After pressing right, I am now perfectly aligned with the door. I should press down to exit the house, and once I'm out, I'll need to locate Professor Elm's lab by moving towards the lower right area of the town. It appears that despite intending to exit the house, I've remained in the same spot. To rectify this, I should be more precise with my movements. I'll press right once more to ensure I'm aligned with the door, and then down to exit. I seem to be having trouble leaving the room. The character's sprite has not moved through the door yet, indicating I may not be correctly aligned or the down button press was not registered properly. This time, I'll ensure to be more deliberate. I'll press right to ensure my alignment with the door is maintained, and then press down to attempt exiting the room. It seems I've been having trouble exiting the room for a few turns now. Looking at the current screenshot, I'm still near the door, but not moving through it. It's possible I am not correctly aligned with the doorway, or the combination of button presses isn't registering as intended to exit the room. I should try a different approach, perhaps walking away from the door and approaching it again to ensure proper alignment. I'll move up one tile to step away from the door, then right to ensure I'm at the right edge of the door, and finally down to go through it. After attempting to leave the room for several turns, I finally made progress and am standing at the threshold of the door. My next step should be to press down again to fully exit the room. Success! After several attempts, I'm now on the threshold of the door. Pressing down should take me outside of the room. Once outside, I'll need to locate Professor Elm's lab. Now that we're at the doorway, pressing down should take us outside. Once we're out, let's attempt to find Professor Elm's lab, which is probably towards the right of the map based on game layout patterns. Okay, it seems I'm still at the threshold of the door despite recent attempts to exit. To make sure the down button press is registering properly, I'll focus on that single input this turn. Here we go, pressing down to step outside. It appears I'm still inside the room, having difficulties exiting. Realigning my position might help. I'll go right and then down to possibly correct my placement relative to the door and try to exit again. The previous attempt to exit the room didn't work as expected. This time I'll try pressing right twice to ensure I'm not directly in front of the door, followed by down multiple times to try and exit the room again. It looks like moving right and then trying to exit has not worked as planned. My new approach will be to move left until I hit the wall and then move down, which should align me with the door correctly. After that, I will attempt to exit the room again. It seems I've been stuck in front of the coffee table after trying to exit the room. The door might be lower than where I have been trying to leave from. This time, I will try moving down cautiously to finally exit. The door seems to be just south of my current position. I likely need to move down more carefully to align with the door's exit path. The previous attempts suggest that I've been too far to the left or not moving down enough. Let's try moving down one tile at a time to find the exit. I appear to be hitting an obstacle when trying to move down. The door must be slightly to the right. I need to nudge right and then try moving down again. The move right successfully brought us next to the table. Now, we need to move down to align with the door and exit the room. Looks like I'm still in the room, and my attempts to exit by moving down have not worked as expected. I need to reassess my position and alignment with the door. I'll try moving left a bit to get around the table, then down once I'm clear of it. The left and down movements have kept us in the same spot, so the exit is not directly aligned with our current path. I should try moving right to get around the table further, then move down to reach the door and exit the room. Moving right has positioned us closer to the bottom of the screen. Since I seem to be beside the table, it's time to try moving down more to see if we can find the door. We've moved far right and still haven't found the exit. It seems we've gone too far to the right side. The door might be located more towards the center of the bottom wall. Let's try moving left a few steps and then attempt going down again. The sequence of moves left and down didn't lead us to the exit. I must reassess my position. To ensure I'm in line with the door, I will try slowly going left until I hit a wall, indicating the edge, and then move down to locate the door. It's important to move one step at a time to avoid overshooting. We've bumped into the wall to the left, which means we're at the edge of the room. Now we need to move down step by step to find the door and exit the room. It's critical to tap down one tile at a time to ensure we don't miss the door. Continuing to press down has not yielded the exit. Perhaps the door is not aligned with the left wall. It might be time to try moving slightly to the right and then down again to look for the door. I have tried moving down from the far left without success. It is time to adjust my strategy. Since I've been navigating by the edges, I could be too far from the door. Let's go right more and then down to find the exit. After several attempts to find the door by sticking to the walls, it's clear a different approach is needed. I will now try systematically sweeping the bottom of the room from the left to right, incrementally moving down until the door is located. It might be more centered than previously estimated, so let's move right from this couch position as it seems we're in the middle of the room, and then try moving down again. The strategy of moving right and then down is not working. We might still be too far to the left. Let's continue moving right and then down to cover more ground, as the door might be closer to the room's center or right side. The approach of moving right incrementally and then down has not led us to the door. We may not be far enough to the right yet. To ensure we are covering the entire bottom of the room thoroughly, let's continue moving right past the couch. Once we're confident we've reached the far right of the room, we will move down to search for the door, being careful to navigate around any potential obstacles. Moving further right no longer seems productive. We appear to be far enough to the right now, so let's start exploring down extensively from this position, working our way leftwards if needed. Having moved down and not finding the door, it's clear we need to try a different direction. Based on the memory notes, we should continue to search down, but also start moving left, as the door could be in that direction. Let's systematically navigate left and down to explore unseen areas. Excellent. We found the door by moving left and down. Now, we should exit the bedroom. Let's move down to go through the doorway and proceed to find the stairs. Remember, the stairs are located at the bottom right section of the room. Once downstairs, we'll need to find and speak to the character's mother before leaving the house. I've successfully reached the bottom floor. It looks like I've overshot the location of our character's mother. I should probably move left to engage in conversation with her and then head right for the door. Once that's done, I'll move down to exit the house and make my way to Professor Elm's lab. We're still upstairs, and we need to go down to reach the bottom floor and then find our character's mother. After speaking to her, we can then head right to the front door and proceed down to exit the house. Looks like we've descended the stairs successfully. Now we need to move left to find and talk to the character's mother. After the conversation, we'll head right, find the exit, and then continue down to leave the house. We've successfully located the character's mother. Let's press A to interact with her. After the conversation, we will head right and down to exit the house and then make our way to Professor Elm's lab. The conversation with the character's mother is complete. Now it's time to exit the house. I'll move right, then down to reach the door, and down once more to leave the house. The conversation with the character's mother is complete. Now it's time to head out. I see the character is facing the exit already. We can proceed by moving down to leave the house. Next, I'll make my way to Professor Elm's lab, which is usually located towards the upper part of the starting town in Pokémon games. We're positioned just right to exit the house. Let's press down to step out. Once outside, we'll need to find Professor Elm's lab, which is typically located towards the top of the starting town. After we're outside, we will press up to start heading in that direction. We're at the threshold of exiting the house. Let's press down again to ensure we step outside. Soon after stepping out, I should adjust our direction by pressing up to make my way towards Professor Elm's lab. Looks like I accidentally went back into the house. I need to correct my mistake by heading down to exit the house properly this time. Once outside, I can continue my journey to Professor Elm's lab. Okay, I've made a slight error and need to exit the house once again. Heading down should take me outside. Once there, I should head up a few times to approach Professor Elm's lab. It appears we've been stuck inside the house for several turns now. I need to rectify this by exiting the house correctly. To do so, I'll press down to leave the house. Once I'm outside, I will head upwards towards Professor Elm's lab, which is typically found in the upper part of the town. After repeated attempts, we're still inside the house. It seems I've been pressing down too many times. I need to press down once to exit, then use up to head towards Professor Elm's lab. Finally, outside the house, let's head up towards Elm's lab without overstepping. The repeated up commands from the previous turn have not been effective as we're still inside the building. I need to take a different approach and start with down to walk towards the exit. Once outside, I will proceed up to go to Professor Elm's lab, making sure not to overdo the input this time. We're still indoors, close to the exit. I need to cautiously approach the door and exit without extra movements. Once outside, proceed in the correct direction to find Professor Elm's lab. Attempt fewer steps to avoid overshooting. We've made it closer to the exit. Now I just need to move down once to leave the house, then take careful steps up towards Professor Elm's lab, being mindful not to overshoot my movements. Down and up commands from previous turn worked as intended. We're finally outside the house. Now it's time to navigate towards Professor Elm's lab. I will go up to position myself in line with the lab, then left towards the building, and then up to enter it. Looks like the previous up command was not processed as expected, and we have not moved. I need to repeat the EP command to exit the house and then proceed to Professor Elm's lab. There appears to have been a misunderstanding in previous turns. We are still inside the house. We must execute down to exit the house. Once outside, I need to head up to align with the lab entrance, then left to move in front of it, and finally up to enter Professor Elm's lab. We have misinterpreted the situation in the previous series of commands and have been trying to navigate from inside the house without realizing it. The correct move now is to exit the house by pressing down. Once outside, we'll make our way to Professor Elm's lab by moving up until we're in line with the entrance, then going left until we're in front of the lab, and finally pressing up to enter. We are still inside the house. The correct move is to press down to exit. Once outside, head up to align with the lab's entrance. Go left until in front of the lab, and then up to enter. We're still inside the house, which means we need to aim for the exit again. This time, we'll press down to finally get outside. Afterward, our goal is to find Professor Elm's lab. Once outside, we will move up until we're aligned with the entrance of the lab, then press left to approach it and up to enter it. It appears there has been a repetitive error in our attempts to navigate from inside the house. We are still inside. We now know down is necessary to exit the room. After exiting, we must proceed upwards to reach Professor Elm's lab. We're stuck in a loop, continuously trying to leave the house but not succeeding. This time, let's make sure we only press down once to exit. Afterward, we'll reassess our situation outside to find Professor Elm's lab. Right, we're still inside our character's house. It's been challenging to exit, but this turn, I'm pressing down only once meticulously to ensure we move towards the door and hopefully leave the house. It seems we're stuck inside the house for several turns now. Let's try a single down press again to reach the exit. If this doesn't work, we need to reassess our approach. We've been trying to exit the house by pressing down, but it hasn't worked so far. Reevaluating our approach, it is possible that we may actually need to press up instead, considering the character's position relative to the exit. Let's try pressing up to finally leave the house, and then assess our surroundings. The previous attempt to press up seems incorrect as the character hasn't moved. The door might be misidentified, so let's try pressing right to head towards the bottom of the screen, which might be where the exit is located. Success! We moved in the right direction, and it looks like we're at the door. Since it appears I'm one tile above the exit, I need to press down to exit the house. Once outside, I'll pause to consider my next steps. We've finally reached the door and are about to exit the house. After stepping outside, we'll need to find Professor Elm's lab to select our first Pokémon. Let's press down to walk out the door. Once outside, we'll evaluate where we are and look for the lab, which is typically located towards the northern part of the starting town in Pokémon games. We're right at the door, preparing to leave the house. This turn, we'll press down to exit. Once outside, we will assess our surroundings and head towards Professor Elm's lab to choose our first Pokémon. Our goal is to move north to find the lab. All right, standing right in front of the door. Time to walk outside. I'll press down again to leave the house. Once we're outside, let's get our bearings and then proceed up towards the northern part of town to find Professor Elm's lab. The character is still inside, right in front of the door, which means the previous down command to exit the house didn't work. There might be dialogue blocking the way, preventing exit. Let's press A to advance any dialogue, then down to try stepping outside again. Once outside, we'll determine the direction to Professor Elm's lab. Dialogue was present. After pressing A, it should clear the dialogue and allow us to proceed down to exit the house. Then, we will push up to head towards the northern part of town to find Professor Elm's lab. The dialogue is still present, so pressing A once did not advance through all of it. We need to press A again to ensure that all dialogue has been cleared. After that, pressing down should finally allow us to exit the house. Once outside, we'll head up to find Professor Elm's lab as planned. Looks like we're still stuck in a dialogue loop. I'll keep pressing A to ensure all dialogue is cleared. Only then can we finally press down to exit the house. Once we're outside, I'll head up to reach Professor Elm's lab as our objective states. Since the dialogue keeps continuing, I'll press A again to keep advancing through it. Once this dialogue is cleared, I will press down to exit the house. After exiting, I'll immediately press up to head in the direction of Professor Elm's lab. The dialogue is extensive. I'll press A repeatedly to ensure all dialogue is cleared this turn. As soon as the dialogue is done, down will be pressed to exit the house. After exiting, pushing up will commence the journey towards Professor Elm's lab based on our current objective. We're being asked to confirm the day of the week. I'll press up to select yes and confirm that today is Sunday. Then I'll proceed with A to clear any following dialogue. After that, down to exit the house once all dialogue is finished. The first up will lead us closer to Professor Elm's lab after leaving the house. The game is requesting confirmation on the daylight saving time setting. The current choice is no, which we want to confirm. Press A to confirm no, and then press A until all remaining dialogue is cleared. Afterward, press down to exit the house, and then press up to move towards Professor Elm's lab. The game is asking if we know how to use the phone feature. Let's select yes to avoid the tutorial, then continue with A to progress through any remaining dialogue. Once finished, down to leave the house, and finally up to head towards Professor Elm's lab. The dialogue hasn't ended yet. Pressing A to continue the conversation. Once the dialogue ends, I'll exit the house with down and then press up to walk towards Professor Elm's lab according to the plan. The remaining dialogue should be finished with one more A press. Afterwards, I should press down to exit the house, then up to proceed north. Our current short-term goal is to locate Professor Elm's lab, which according to in-game geography should be further north in New Barktown. The dialogue has concluded. It's time to press down to leave the house. Once outside, I'll press up to head towards Professor Elm's lab, which is our main objective. Since the path is straightforward, I can queue up multiple times to keep moving in that direction. Now that the dialogue with Mom is finished, let's exit the house by pressing down. Once outside, I'll make my way to Professor Elm's lab by pressing up several times to move north. We seem to have misinterpreted the dialogue cues previously. Now that we're ready, we'll press down to leave the house. After exiting, we'll proceed with our objective of reaching Professor Elm's lab by pressing up several times to head north. It appears we are stuck in a dialogue loop, likely caused by repeatedly pressing A due to a misunderstanding of the dialogue's end. This time, let's focus on pressing B to exit the conversation, ensuring we conclude the dialogue with Mom. Once done, we should then press down to leave the house and begin our journey toward Professor Elm's lab. Now I realize we were stuck in a dialogue loop by pressing A. Let's press B to close the dialogue and then down to exit the house. Finally, up to move toward Professor Elm's lab. Finally, out of the dialogue loop, let's continue our journey. We'll move up to exit the house and then continue pressing up to reach Professor Elm's lab, sticking to our main objective. It seems we're still inside the house. I need to guide A to leave the house. I'll press down to exit, then up once to turn around, followed by more up presses to head towards Professor Elm's lab. Let's be careful and add a left press just in case we're aligned with the doorway to avoid re-entering the house by accident. Success! We've managed to exit the house. Now let's press up to move away from the doorway and continue up to head toward Professor Elm's lab as planned. It seems there was a misunderstanding as we have not actually left the house. Let's correct this right away. I'll press down to step outside and then proceed up to make our way towards Professor Elm's lab. There's been a bit of confusion with the door, but now it's time to make our way to Professor Elm's lab. First, I'll press down to step outside, and then right and up to navigate around the house and towards the lab. It looks like we've misunderstood our position relative to the door multiple times, leading to us staying in the same place. Time to correct this. I'll press down to walk out of the house and then right to avoid re-entering inadvertently. After that, I'll press up to begin heading toward Professor Elm's lab. Great! We have finally left the house, and now we find ourselves in what appears to be Professor Elm's lab. It's time to talk to Professor Elm to get our first Pokémon. I will press A to interact with him. Now in Professor Elm's lab, we're facing the right direction to talk to him. Let's continue by pressing A to initiate the conversation and receive our first Pokémon. Standing in front of Professor Elm, but not close enough to interact. Need to step forward and press A to engage and select our first Pokémon. Alright, we're nearly there. It looks like we just need to move one more tile up to be directly in front of Professor Elm, and then we can press A to finally interact with him and choose our starter Pokémon. We're directly in front of Professor Elm. Time to press A to interact with him and choose our starter Pokémon. It seems that despite our attempts, we still haven't managed to initiate a conversation with Professor Elm. We need to be directly facing him to start the interaction. Let's try moving one tile to the left and then press A. Finally facing Professor Elm, it's time to press A to interact with him and select our first Pokémon. Judging from the positioning, it seems I'm still not directly in front of Professor Elm, as I should be one tile lower on the screen. I need to move down one tile and then press A to interact with him. We are now directly in front of Professor Elm. This time, pressing A should initiate the conversation to select our starter Pokémon. We are directly in front of Professor Elm, and ready to converse. Pressing A should start the interaction so we can choose our starter Pokémon. It seems we're experiencing some issue with interacting with Professor Elm. Based on past turns, pressing A has not initiated dialogue. It's possible that we're either experiencing a delay in actions or a game-related issue that requires a reset. As a next step, let's try pressing A one more time to see if it was a simple delay. If this doesn't work, a reset might be necessary, although we should avoid it if possible. Having attempted to interact with Professor Elm multiple times without success suggests a potential problem with the game. As previously noted, if issues persist, consider a game reset. However, before taking that step, I'll attempt interaction with another object or NPC to diagnose if the issue is specific to Professor Elm or a broader control input problem. The character has moved left, but we're still not sure if the interaction issue is resolved. Next, let's try to interact with another object, like the computer. I will walk up to the computer and press A. If this doesn't work, the next step should be to exit the building and try to interact with something outside before considering a reset. The previous turns indicated an issue with interacting. We've tried approaching Professor Elm and now the computer with no success. Now, let's exit Professor Elm's building to see if interaction with objects or NPCs outside works. If this is successful, we may need to enter again to see if the problem with Professor Elm resolves itself. Otherwise, a reset may be the next course of action. Successfully exited the building. Now, I'll try interacting with an outside object or NPC to test if the interaction issue was isolated to the inside. Let's walk up to the nearest object or person and press A. If we can interact, it might have been a temporary glitch inside. If not, this is becoming more indicative of a persistent issue. We're finally outside. Now, let's test our ability to interact with the environment here. I'll approach the nearest NPC or object by going up and trying to interact with it by pressing A. If this doesn't work, we may need to seriously consider a game reset. I've tried to interact with an object or NPC outside, pressing up then A. If the interaction is successful, we'll know the problem was likely just inside Professor Elm's lab. If it still doesn't work, it's possible we're experiencing a more serious issue, and a game reset might be necessary. It appears there was an issue with registering the correct coordinates for movement outside of Professor Elm's lab based on the last screenshots. Now that we're still inside, let's make certain to move down and exit the building. Once outside, we should attempt to interact with an NPC or object to correctly diagnose the problem. All right, we are now successfully outside. It's time to test the interaction with the NPC standing nearby. Let's move towards the NPC and press A to initiate conversation and confirm that our interaction capability is functioning correctly. It seems we moved too far up and missed interacting with the NPC. We need to step down one tile and press A to initiate conversation. If this works, our interaction concerns are resolved outside. Success! We're in front of the NPC. It's time to press A to interact and ensure we can speak with people outside. If this works, the next step is to explore New Barktown. I'm positioned correctly in front of the NPC. Pressing A should initiate a conversation. Assuming this goes smoothly, my next move will be to explore New Barktown further and head towards Professor Elm's house to choose a starter Pokémon if necessary. We're ready to interact with the NPC. Pressing A now will allow us to confirm that interactions are functioning correctly. If successful, the plan will be to explore New Barktown more and then visit Professor Elm to choose our starter Pokémon. Looks like we're finally in the right spot to interact with the NPC. Pressing A should trigger the dialogue with them. After this, it's time to head towards Professor Elm's lab, which is typically the building with the satellite dish. We'll be looking to choose our starter Pokémon there. Okay, we've confirmed the functionality of interacting with NPCs and have successfully made it to the outside of what appears to be my character's house, but we actually need to visit Professor Elm's lab to choose a starter Pokémon. Next, we should head west to find the lab, which is usually indicated by a satellite dish on the building. As per the last update, we need to keep moving left to reach Professor Elm's lab to pick our starter Pokémon. Since the building with the label ACCCC's house is not the lab, we'll proceed left and look for the distinctive satellite dish on top of a building that signals Elm's location. Once we're there, we'll enter the lab to choose our starter, completing one of our primary objectives. We've moved left from our character's house. Now we need to find Professor Elm's lab to choose a starter Pokémon. It should be nearby and have a satellite dish visible on its roof. Once we find the building, we'll enter and proceed with picking our starter. Now that we're outside, we must locate Professor Elm's lab to choose a starter Pokémon. Remember, it's the building with a satellite dish. We will go right and up until we find it. Then we'll press A to enter. We've been moving around a lot and still haven't located Professor Elm's lab. Reviewing the surroundings and map layout is necessary to ensure we're heading in the correct direction. Since we've been headed upwards and not found the lab, we should try exploring to the left from the current position to see if we can find the lab. Once we locate it, we can enter to select our starter Pokémon. It seems we've been circling around without locating Professor Elm's lab. To correct this, I'll move further left from our current position and continue north if needed, watching out for any building with a satellite dish. If moving left doesn't lead us to the lab, we'll try going up from the location we reach after moving left. The lab should be in one of these vicinities based on our position in New Barktown. It seems we've been unsuccessful in finding Professor Elm's lab by moving left and upwards. Given the situation, it's time to adjust our strategy and explore other directions. Let's try moving downwards to expand our search area, and then change direction as needed based on the buildings we encounter. We move down and to the right, and now we encounter a building with a satellite dish that matches the description of Professor Elm's lab. It's time to go inside and choose our starter Pokémon. I'll approach the door and press A to enter. Looks like we're right in front of Professor Elm's lab. It's time to go in and choose our starter Pokémon. I'll head straight to the door and press A to enter the lab. We're now facing the door to Professor Elm's lab. It's time to step in and pick our starter Pokémon. I'll press A to enter the lab. We are directly in front of Professor Elm's lab. I will press A to enter the building and then select our starter Pokémon once inside. We are positioned right in front of the door to Professor Elm's lab. It's time to enter and pick a starter Pokémon. I'll press A to go through the door. Despite pressing A, we have not entered the lab. It seems we must take a step up to be correctly aligned with the door before pressing A again. After entering, we'll approach the Pokeballs to choose a starter. Okay, we need to enter the lab. We learned that we must be perfectly aligned in front of the door to enter. Let's press up once more to align and A to enter. Inside, we'll approach the Pokeballs to select our starter Pokemon. Now that we're perfectly aligned with the door, pressing A should allow us to enter Professor Elm's lab. Once inside, I'll need to move towards the Pokeballs to finally pick our starter. Great, we're aligned with the door now. Pressing A should take us inside. Once we're in, we'll head over to the Pokeballs and choose our starter Pokemon. It seems that pressing A did not result in entering the lab. This may be due to a slight misalignment or a need for another button input. To remedy this, let's try pressing up one more time to ensure we are directly in front of the door, and then A to enter. We must be precise in our positioning. We're still outside the lab. There may have been a misjudgment in our alignment with the door, or we may already be correctly aligned and another A press is needed. Additionally, we know from our memory that we have to be perfectly aligned before pressing A. To ensure we're aligned, we'll try pressing up again and then A. If we're already aligned, up P won't change our position, and A should get us in. Seems like we are still stuck outside. Perhaps we're pressing up unnecessarily. Since we haven't moved, we should only press A to attempt to enter. It appears that pressing A has not resulted in entering the lab for several turns now. This time, I will adjust my position slightly and try pressing A again. I'll press left to ensure we are not stuck in place due to being at the door's edge, and then up to approach the door from a different angle, followed by A to attempt to enter. After pressing left and up, we seem to be perfectly aligned with the door now. The previous A press was probably while we were still misaligned. Pressing A now should definitely take us inside the lab, where we can finally choose our starter Pokemon. Alright, it looks like we've aligned with the door after the previous adjustment. Let's press A to enter Professor Elm's lab and proceed with choosing our starter Pokemon. We've tried pressing A multiple times without entering the lab. Perhaps we're not standing in the correct spot. I'll move one step to the right to align better with the door, then press A to try entering. It seems we're still outside the lab. This time, we've moved one step to the right. To properly align with the door, we need to move one step up. Then, pressing A should allow us to enter the lab. I'm finally standing directly in front of the door. Now I'll press A to enter Professor Elm's lab and proceed to choose my starter Pokemon. Despite multiple attempts to enter the lab, we are still outside. Let's try pressing up once more to ensure we are completely aligned, then press A again to enter. It seems we're still not inside the lab. Our previous attempt by pressing up before A did not succeed, so let's adjust our approach. To confirm our position, we should move one tile down and then one tile up, which should place us squarely in front of the door. Then pressing A should finally let us enter Professor Elm's lab. We are still outside the lab despite previous attempts to enter. This time, I'm going to move one step to the left and then press A, as the door might be in line with that tile. Success at last. It appears that stepping to the left and pressing A has finally allowed us to enter the lab. Now, it's time to walk up to the table with the Pokeballs and choose a starter Pokemon by interacting with it. We've successfully entered Professor Elm's lab and are now ready to choose our starter Pokemon. Professor Elm has approached us, likely to give us some important dialogue. Once the dialogue is complete, I will move towards the Pokeballs on the table and make a decision on which starter to choose. I'll continue the conversation with Professor Elm by pressing A to advance the dialogue. After the conversation, it's time to select our starter Pokemon from the table filled with Pokeballs. We're in a conversation with Professor Elm where he's explaining his research. I need to continue pressing A to advance through his dialogue. Once this conversation is complete, I will approach the Pokeballs to choose our starter. Currently in dialogue with Professor Elm. To progress, keep pressing A until dialogue is complete. Then, move to the Pokeballs on the table to choose our starter Pokemon. I've completed the dialogue with Professor Elm. It's time to move to the table and choose a starter Pokemon. Let's walk up to the Pokeballs and press A to see the options available. Dialogue with Professor Elm is still ongoing. Continue pressing A until the conversation ends. Then, approach the table with the Pokeballs, pressing up to align with them, and A to interact and choose a starter Pokemon. It seems the dialogue with Professor Elm is not quite over yet. I need to press A to further the conversation until it finishes. Once the dialogue is complete, my immediate goal is to walk up to the table and select our starter Pokemon by pressing A when facing the Pokeballs. Looks like Professor Elm has finished his email. I should now be able to move towards the Pokeballs to pick our starter Pokemon. I'll press up twice to stand in front of them, and then A to interact. It seems more dialogue is present, so I'll continue by pressing A to complete it. Once the dialogue is finished, I need to approach the Pokeballs to select a starter Pokemon. I'll press up to align with the table, and then A to interact with the Pokeballs once the dialogue ends. The conversation with Professor Elm continues. Keep pressing A to complete the dialogue. After it's done, walk up to the table with the Pokeballs. Press up twice to stand in front of them, then A to make a selection. Professor Elm's dialogue is still continuing. I'll press A to advance through it. After the dialogue, I'll approach the Pokeballs, press up to stand in front of them, and then A to select my starter Pokemon. The dialogue with Professor Elm seems to still be ongoing. I'll continue to press A until it concludes. Afterward, I should press up 2 times to move in front of the Pokeballs, and then A to interact with them, and finally choose my starter Pokemon. We're still engaged in the conversation with Professor Elm, and it looks like he might be wrapping up. I need to keep pressing A to finish the dialogue. Once the conversation is over, 2 up moves will position us in front of the Pokeballs to pick our starter. Then, I'll press A to interact with the Pokeballs. I'm now positioned in front of the Pokeballs after finishing the conversation with Professor Elm. It's time to choose my starter Pokemon by interacting with each Pokeball and deciding which one to take. I'll press A to check the first Pokeball, and I can press left or right to move between them if I want to evaluate each option. Let's check the first Pokeball on the left by pressing A. Depending on the Pokemon inside, I might select it or check the others by pressing right and then A again to inspect each one. It's time to check the first Pokeball on the left by pressing A. I need to assess the starter Pokemon to make my choice. Now we're right in front of the Pokeballs. It's time to check them and decide on a starter. I'll start with the leftmost one by pressing A. Based on what we find, we can move to the right to check the others. Alright, we're finally in front of the Pokeballs. Let's press A to check the leftmost Pokeball and see which starter Pokémon is inside. Once we've seen this one, we can decide if we want to check the others. We are positioned correctly to choose a starter Pokémon. Let's press A to interact with the leftmost Pokéball and see which Pokémon is inside. If we want to choose it, we will press A again. Otherwise, we can move to the next one with right and A. It seems I'm having difficulty interacting with the Pokéballs. I should press A one more time to attempt to select the leftmost starter Pokémon. It seems I've been having trouble interacting with the Pokéballs to choose a starter. For this attempt, I need to make sure I'm directly facing the Pokéball and press A again to check which Pokémon is inside. Despite pressing A multiple times, we haven't managed to interact with the Pokéballs yet. It might be because I'm not correctly aligned with the ball. To ensure success, I'll move one step down and then press A to interact with the leftmost Pokéball. Now I'm a step below the table. I should move up to face the Pokéball again and try interacting with it by pressing A. This should let me see which Pokémon it is. It looks like we're directly in front of the Pokéball this time. Let's press A to finally interact with it and see which starter Pokémon is inside. Alright, now we're perfectly aligned with the Pokéball. Let's press A and see which starter Pokémon it is. Once we know, we can decide whether to choose it or check the others. I'm still not able to interact with the Pokéball. Perhaps I'm one step too far to the right. I should move one step left and try pressing A again. Now that I've moved to the left, I should be aligned with the center Pokéball. I'll press A to interact with it and see which starter Pokémon is being offered. It seems I'm still having trouble interacting with the Pokéball. I need to make sure I'm facing the table. I'll move up one tile so that I am directly in front of the Pokéball and then press A. This should allow me to interact with it. I'm positioned right in front of the table containing the starter Pokémon. Now, I should press A to interact with the Pokéball directly in front of me to find out which Pokémon it contains and decide if I want to choose it or look at the other options. Finally, I'm in the correct position to interact with the middle Pokéball. Time to press A and see which starter Pokémon it is. After finding out, I can decide whether to check the others or choose this one. Now that I am correctly positioned in front of the middle Pokéball, I'll press A to interact with it and find out which starter Pokémon it contains. It looks like I've been trying to interact with the Pokéball by pressing A. However, since I have not received any prompts, it's possible that I might not be correctly positioned, or there may have been a timing issue with the button press. I will try pressing A again to see if it was a timing issue. Despite pressing A to interact with the Pokéball, it doesn't seem to work. Maybe I'm not standing in the exact spot needed, or there's an error with the game. I'll try moving one tile to the left and pressing A again to make sure I'm interacting with the Pokéball from a different angle. It seems that moving to the left didn't trigger an interaction with the Pokéball. I'll move back in front of the middle Pokéball and attempt to interact again. I need to make sure I'm directly in front and facing the middle Pokéball before I press A. It seems that pressing A while in front of the middle Pokéball has not been successful through several attempts, suggesting I am either still not positioned correctly or there's a game issue. I should be one tile away, directly in front of the Pokeball, to interact with it. I'll try moving one tile up again and pressing A to select my starter Pokemon. After reviewing my previous attempts, I see that my character is now one tile above the middle Pokeball, which is the correct position to interact with it. I'll press A to hopefully receive the prompt to choose this starter Pokemon. Once again, I attempted to interact with the Pokeball without success. I need to reevaluate my position. It looks like I am directly in front of the machine instead of the Pokeball. I will move one tile to the right and try to interact with the middle Pokeball again. It looks like my character is in the correct position to interact with the middle Pokeball now. I need to ensure I'm facing it directly and then press A to interact and choose my starter Pokemon. The character seems correctly positioned to interact with the middle Pokeball now. It's time to press A and choose a starter Pokemon. Success was not achieved during the previous attempts, even though it seemed the character was correctly positioned in front of the middle Pokeball. It's possible the character isn't perfectly aligned or there's a delay. Let's try moving one tile to the left and then back to the right to ensure we're facing the Pokeball properly before pressing A. My character is once again facing the middle Pokeball, so it's time to try interacting with it once more. I will press A to see if I can engage with the ball and select my starter Pokemon. I'm still positioned in front of the middle Pokeball and need to attempt interaction again. Press A to interact with the Pokeball and choose a starter. Despite multiple attempts to interact with the middle Pokeball, there has been no success. The character is definitely facing the Pokeball now, so there may be another issue. Perhaps it's a timing issue or a misunderstanding of the game mechanics. As a next step, let's try positioning the character one tile above the Pokeball, directly in front of it, and attempt interaction again. The second screenshot indicates that pressing up has resulted in the character moving away from the Pokeballs entirely. This means up was pressed for too long or was mistimed. Let's navigate back to the Pokeballs and attempt to interact once more. The current plan is to move down one tile, face the middle Pokeball, and press A. It looks like we've successfully interacted with the middle Pokeball, and Professor Elm is offering us Cyndaquil. Let's go ahead and confirm our choice by pressing A to select Cyndaquil as our starter Pokemon. We've got Cyndaquil on screen with the yes/no prompt. Time to confirm our starter. I'm selecting yes. Professor Elm is affirming our choice. After his dialogue, we'll be prompted to name Cyndaquil. I'll press A to proceed through the dialogue, then select yes when asked to nickname Cyndaquil to fulfill our objective. We're now at the nickname screen for our Cyndaquil. It's time to name our starter Pokemon, fulfilling the objective we had set earlier. We should carefully select a nickname and confirm it. After naming, we'll need to continue with dialogue and prepare for our journey. Professor Elm has given us our next objective, to find Mr. Pokemon beyond Cherry Grove City. It's time to leave the lab and begin our adventure. We'll head down and then continue to the left until we exit the building. Once outside, we'll start our journey toward Cherry Grove City. It looks like I've been repeatedly pressing left to exit the building, and it's clear that this isn't working as intended. There might be an issue with the emulation or the input commands not being properly registered. For now, I need to correct the navigation. First, I'll press down to step away from any objects I might be stuck on, and then I will try moving to the left once more to head towards the exit. I remain in the same position as before, suggesting that my previous inputs did not register correctly. To troubleshoot, I'll try to move in a different direction first, then attempt to leave the lab again.
Boom! Sorry for the jump scare there. Just sort of arbitrarily cutting it off there. That'll be the end of ChatGPT's playthrough for the time being there. It felt like a good stopping point after it gets its first Pokemon, but also it's just where I hit the daily rate limit for today, and I've already spent like $9 on this. I like wasting money, but I don't like I don't like wasting money in an unbounded way. And that's what the OpenAI API kind of is. Anyway, it didn't do very well. It didn't play Pokemon Crystal very well, which I kind of expected going in, and maybe a lot of you expected that going in as well. OpenAI themselves have said as much, that this current iteration of the GPT-4 vision model is not very good at understanding spatial relationships. And we definitely saw, well, for one, that's definitely something that you need to be able to play most video games. Pokemon is no exception there. Maybe if it was like only in battles and it was just like having to select moves, it would do better. But it did not get that far. It did not get far enough to be in a battle. We definitely saw, it was struggling with the concept of spatial relationships. So I wasn't expecting it to do super well, knowing that going in. But I will admit I'm a little disappointed at just how poorly it did. It definitely got like just stuck in some of these cycles of just trying the same thing over and over again. Like we definitely saw that where it was stuck on the top floor of the house and it just had no idea where to go. And it just got fixated on this idea of, well, I'm trying to go downstairs, so I should press the down button. That's the right thing to do. Never mind the fact that the stairs are actually at the top of the room. And so part of the problem, right, is I'm not giving it that much context. I'm only giving it, at most 5 turns worth of context. So it's only able to learn from its mistakes so much. But then part of the problem is also the opposite, right? Which is, if you've played around with ChatGPT or any of these Gen AI things, they like to get sort of fixated on their own mistakes. Like as soon as they make one mistake and that's now part of their, chat history, part of their context, they're just going to like laser focus on that same mistake. And that's definitely something we saw again and again here. And you might have noticed I tried to help it out a bit when it was stuck trying to find the stairs. I started modifying its, can I rotate the camera? Its internal memory there. Well, this is after that point. Modifying its internal memory to add some advice from humans and location of stairs. And the very funny thing, this is far enough in now that it's not there anymore. The funny thing is, like, it overwrote my advice. I told it, hey, the stairs are in the top right of the room. And it, at some point, I'm not quite sure when, I'd have to go back and check it. At some point, overwrote that and said, the stairs are actually at the bottom right of the room. It's like, come on. I'm trying to help you out here, bro. Let's see. But I was impressed at some parts of it. In particular, well, for one, it always, within margin of error, always seemed to have a pretty good sense of like where it was and what it was trying to do, like in terms of the progression of the game. Like it never got it again, like it was sometimes a little slightly off, like it thought it already got outside the house when it was still inside the house, that sort of thing. But it understood, hey, I'm starting the game, I'm choosing my gender, I'm naming my character, I'm skipping through this dialogue with Professor Oak. Now I'm on the top floor of my house. I'm trying to get downstairs. I'm downstairs. I need to talk to the mother. Then I need to go outside. I need to go to Professor Elm. I need to choose my first Pokemon. And, all of that is just like knowledge that's ingrained in ChatGPT. It didn't actually, seemingly, looking at its memory, looking at its thoughts, it seemingly didn't learn any of that by virtue of, the game telling it things. It's just, there is lots of text on the internet that explains how to play Pokemon Crystal. Or that explains the progression of Pokemon Crystal. And so it had at least some vague understanding at all times of, like, what it was trying to do. But moreover, it seemed to pretty quickly catch on when it was just getting, like, totally stuck. Like, again, when it was just, like, repeatedly pressing down and not going anywhere for, like, 3 turns or 5 turns or however many turns in a row, it would, like, pretty quickly catch on, hey, I'm trying the same thing over and over again. Nothing's happening. Like, it in order to understand that, it has to actually be looking at the screenshots and understanding, like, hey, there's no progress being made between these. And that it did a pretty good job at. What it didn't do a good job at is from then figuring out how it should correct its mistakes. And, the part that drove me mad is when it just kept pressing down to go outside and, like, nothing was happening. He was just stuck in a corner, not moving. And then finally he was like, pressing down repeatedly doesn't seem to be working. I should instead try pressing down repeatedly, followed by pressing the down button. It's like, bruh, what are you doing? And then it finally made it downstairs, but only by virtue of the fact that it was just confused about where it was. I thought it was, like, outside and trying to go up to Elm's lab. Then it finally was like, oh, let me press up a bunch. And then by the time it finally, it spent so long trying to talk to the mother. It even had a thing in its memory that was like, mother not found, true, which is very funny to me. But then by the time it actually did find the mother, it was, like, so lost it didn't even know what it was trying to do anymore. It had completely forgotten that that's what it was trying to do. So overall, I'd say this proof of concept was mostly a failure. Maybe there were, like, some ways you could prompt it better, get it, better chain of reasoning, that sort of thing. And I think if I did make this a live stream that just ran forever, probably people would watch it. But one, that would cost me a lot of money very quickly. There's already, every turn that passes costs like 2 cents or more, which isn't very much, at the individual level, but it adds up very quickly when it's taking this long to make any meaningful progress. But again, moreover, for now, the API is still just limited to 100 requests per day. So maybe if they lift that limit, if they figure out their whole CEO situation, if this company still exists a week from now, they're able to work on things like increasing their API limits. Maybe, no promises, we can do a live stream of it, give it another go. What I think would maybe work, and again, like, the one thing I tried didn't work super well of giving it human advice, but if I fed in YouTube chat comments, stream it on YouTube and have the YouTube comments going, feeding into it every turn, that could be interesting. You'd have a whole army of humans, of YouTubers, YouTube commenters being like, dum-dum, go up. Anyway, that's all for now. Welcome to Pieman's Garbage Dump, my exciting new second channel. Again, if you just happen to stumble upon this video and you're looking for actually good content, head over to my main channel, whichever direction it is. Pieman rules. But I think that's going to be it for now. I'll see you next time. Just one more thing. This is the quality you get from the second channel. Very well produced. I'm just watching it play through live now as I record it. And it's getting to the part where it's just, like, so convinced that the game is broken that it's, like, willing to reset the game. It's like, let me try a few more things, and if that doesn't work, I'm gonna have to reset the game. It's like, buddy, you do not have the ability to reset this game. All you can do is enter button presses. Just figure out what you need to do.